Hello and welcome to Warp Factor Unknown, the podcast where we delve into the world of Star Trek for an unpredictable rewatch and discussion. I'm your host, Dan, and ready to beam in today's episode is Tom.
Hello everyone, nice to be here as usual.
Fantastic. And today we're also joined by a guest co-host, someone who can probably tell you exactly what a self-sealing stem bolt is for, Susant.
Hey everyone. Thanks, Dan, for that fantastic intro. And yes, I could, but I'll go into it a bit later.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's one of those like contentious topics in Star Trek. But what is a self-sealing stem bolt? It's one of my favourite recurring jokes that they have throughout the series. Fantastic. Well, glad to have you on, Sant. And today we are talking about Star Trek Voyager, the episode Collective from Season 6, Episode 16. But before we dive into that conversation, we just want to have a quick chat with our guest, Susant. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe what your relationship to Star Trek is like, what you love or don't love, what you've seen or not seen. Bit of an open forum, open microphone. Have a few minutes. Susant.
Yeah, sure. So I credit my dad, really, for getting me into Star Trek. He's a mathematician. He always touted Star Trek as his fave over Star Wars. I personally started as a bit of a Star Wars kid. Dad tried to get me into Star Trek, but something about the Space Cowboys appeal was far more interesting. So, especially to a kid. Plus, it always sounded way cooler than negotiating things in space. No, and this was well before Disney, when Star Wars was still quite a call it respected franchise. Anyway, I always liked Star Trek, just not quite to the same level. But when I was a little older, or say early high school, we got pay TV, which is a pretty huge deal at the time, something your former Prime Minister can probably relate to. And they had a sci-fi channel, and they'd run Star Trek marathons for about 4 or 5 hours at a time. So it's about 4 episodes plus 1 hour of ads. And that's probably when I really started to appreciate it a bit more. So I'd, sneak into the TV room at night, watch hours of Voyager, DS9, etc. Then I'd get caught by my parents. Then eventually my parents put a PIN code on the pay TV because I kept getting caught. But surprisingly, I managed to crack it quite a few times. I think, as probably most immigrant parents, they were convinced that if I didn't watch TV or play computer games, that I'd divert that time into reading a maths book. So yeah, I mean, after I finished school, I was living by myself, going through a bit of a challenging time. So I started going to a local Blockbuster when they were still around, which was across the street. And I'd rent the 7 weekly DVDs for $7, and then just binge watch Star Trek for hours. Up until that point, I'd seen heaps of episodes, just never in order. So I had a great time, and it was probably around then that it really overtook Star Wars as my ultimate sci-fi. It also helped me through a lot of things in life. That was a bit of I was pretty poor. Typical uni student. Star Trek holds a very special place in my heart. In terms of favorites, TNG. Next Gen first, then DS9. Unusually, maybe Enterprise and Voyager. Probably about even. And then the original series. There are a few episodes of the originals that I still haven't watched, so I'm intending to go back through them one day. In terms of new gen, as we're calling it, I love the Kelvin Timeline's first 2 films, not so much the third. And then in terms of Discovery, I'm a little mixed. Season 2 is fantastic. Strange New World is also great. Lower Decks is probably my favorite. But Picard Season 3 sits above all of them. And then I guess the last thing, favorite captain, the inevitable question, Picard, definitely. And then probably Captain Archer.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cisco's a little bit too religious for me, as much as I love him. But...
He is the Messiah.
Yeah.
He reluctant Messiah.
Yeah, we'll call it that.
It's one thing we've not done on this podcast yet with me and Tom. We've not actually, done like a favorite captain or like a crew ranking. That thing where you build like your dream crew. We've not done that. So maybe for like a bonus episode, Tom, we could do something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I always flip and change between my favorite captain and I don't know who it is. It changes consistently. But no, it sounds like you've seen tons of Star Trek and it's been like a part of you for quite a while.
Yeah.
That's great, yeah. Is there any Star Trek you just do not like at all, you adamantly do not watch?
No, I'm pretty... I've seen very little of the animated series and Star Trek Prodigy I'm still waiting to get into. And I was very upset with Picard Season 2. But I think that's fairly common.
Yeah, I think for me, I had, maybe it was my own fault, I got a bit hyped up with Star Trek Picard, just in general, and then when something doesn't live up to what you kind of want it to be or how good you want it to be, it's like, oh, it could have been better, I think. The whole, even season 3 as well, which is the better one, I think still could have had, just, I don't know. Didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, okay.
But I still enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really respect the idea of an original story in season 1, and then I had to live through Data's death again, which was obviously very emotional. I mean, I cried in Nemesis.
Oh man, yeah.
I think, but then season 2 really sort of fell off a bit of a cliff for me. Yeah, season 3 was really the great redemption. But maybe that's why I view it so highly, is that it really came roaring back from season 2. So.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It actually took me a little while to get into season 3, and I want to go back and rewatch it because I can't quite remember, and I was a bit confused while watching it how the changelings and how the Borg kind of were linked and joined up. I was a bit confused by how they were all on the same side or whatever was going on. So I was kind of a bit confused about, I guess, the plot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I want to go back and rewatch it to understand it, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously, when I first watched it, I watched it it was one a week or whatever it was. If I just binged it, I'd probably, that'd make more sense.
Yeah. No, great points. And definitely a good question to ask. I think it was more the reappearance of all those I held dear on that crew that was really, really, really great for me, especially Worf. So handsome.
Oh man, yeah.
He's aged well.
Do you know? I think if they offered Michael Dorn a Captain Worf show or any kind of Worf show, I think he'd still take it. I know he's been, I think he's always sort of been pretty steadfast in I'll do another show. He's always pretty keen for Star Trek.
That'd be great. Star Trek Worf.
At least 3 series now, isn't he? Yeah, at least. DS9, TNG, Picard, probably somewhere else.
Probably somewhere else, yeah.
Surely a computer game.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Okay, well, that was great. Thank you for that, Sant. We now need to do a little recap for the episode we're talking about today, Collective. I'm going to pass you over to Tom.
The crew of the Delta Flyer, including Chakotay, Paris, Neelix and Harry, are captured by a damaged Borg cube. Voyager tracks the cube and discovers it is controlled by a group of Borg children, led by the First, who have been severed from the Collective due to a viral outbreak that killed all the adult drones on board. As Captain Janeway and the Voyager crew work to negotiate, 7 of 9 forms a bond with the children, drawing on her own experience as a former Borg. Meanwhile, the Doctor is ordered to try and reactivate the virus that killed the adult drones, giving Janeway a difficult decision. After it is revealed to the children that the Borg Collective will not be coming to rescue them, the Borg children are convinced to go with Voyager. However, the First refuses to abandon his Borg identity and dies before he can be saved.
Beautiful, as always. Thank you, Tom.
Welcome.
As always, I've brought a bunch of notes. So if you don't mind, I'll kick us off, and then you guys can sort of join in with anything you've got as we go. But I wanted to start with the the poker scene in the opener. I thought it was quite fun. I quite enjoyed it, and it was a bit cheesy, but I did like Neelix's bluff he was doing and how Harry called him out, and yeah, it was a fun little scene.
Yeah, I thought so.
I did have one question about it. Tom suggests that they make it more interesting, and instead of playing for nothing chips because there's no money, they play for work details. And I got me thinking. I was like, that doesn't work at all, because none of them can do each other's job. Maybe someone can do Harry's job, but like Neelix could not do Chakotay's job. But it's just too incompatible. I was like, that's a stupid bet. What? And yeah, it's not as if like Chakotay occasionally gets like latrine duty. I don't know. Did you guys get that at all?
I think maybe if it wasn't work details, it could have been something else, some form of payment, but I can't think what. But not just playing for the fun of it.
Yeah, like I can see like Chakotay going into Neelix's like restaurant and making some food, or I don't know, whatever. But vice versa, I couldn't see it.
I had the exact same question. I was thinking about it. Like I loved it. Like I thought it was the cheesiness of the poker scene. I mean, I used to be a dealer, a casino dealer, I should say, a croupier. Not that I like gambling, but it was kind of fun to see, and it really gave off that early 2000s, cheesy vibe, as you pointed out. What I suspect it might have been is I wonder if they were on like a multi-day trip in the Delta Flyer. So maybe that's where the shifts came in, because I was like, well, how can Chakotay... I thought Chakotay would be a terrible cook, personally, but that's what was my first go-to.
I would rather have Chakotay's cooking than Neelix commanding.
100%.
Yes.
And surely they
Thank
can
you.
just
I'm glad we agree with that, yeah. Or Neelix, like, piloting the Delta Flyer. Neelix doing anything other than whatever he does.
Although you could argue, I mean, we don't know a lot about his history, but he does seem to have a lot of very, I was going to say worldly, but I meant universal galactic life experience, so maybe he does have some real tricks. I mean, maybe that poker scene, that bluff, maybe you learn it from there.
I agree. I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought, he's acting like he doesn't know how to play poker at all, but he secretly is an expert.
Yeah, for sure.
I've not seen all Voyager in quite a while, so I might be remembering this wrong. Wasn't Neelix a soldier in his younger days?
Great question. Can't remember either.
No, that's fine. We'll throw that to the void.
Yeah,
Neelix may have been a soldier.
Yeah, it did. Having seen this episode now, it did make me want to go back and watch them. But then I have also remembered that each season's about 24 to 26 episodes. And they're all, well, I don't want to say they're all fantastic, but it could be worth it, but that's a lot of time.
It's a big commitment doing any kind of full rewatch. Shortly after the poker scene, they get captured by the Borg. I love the Borg. I know like some people have like an issue with the Borg in Voyager. They get overused quite a bit. And yeah, they do a little bit. And they kind of like lose some of their mystique and scariness by being used so much and having the Borg Queen and what have you. But I like the Borg. I think they're great. And I like the Borg in Voyager. And I do like this Borg cube, how it's all beaten up and damaged. I think the model they used, it looks really good. Obviously, it's not in HD. It's not been remastered. So it doesn't look as sharp as it could do. But for what they got, I think it looks really good. I like the exterior shots of that cube we see in this episode.
All green and oozing, isn't it? Sort of. Yeah.
I like that too.
Yeah.
It's good.
And like on that same note, when they do get captured, there's this wicked shot, this point of view shot from the cockpit as they're getting tractor beamed into the Borg cube through like that circular hatch, and it's like the red tractor beam, and you can see them going in. I was like, I thought it was a really good shot. I really like that.
Yeah, I did have some questions. I know the sensors didn't pick it up, but the main pilot of Voyager seeing it out the window and not saying anything, just having a bit of a panic attack or freezing is pretty concerning to me.
Yeah, true.
He's meant to be a pilot ace, and then he's just looks out the window, doesn't say anything, and shuts down.
100%. Actually, I'm gonna compare it to one of my notes a little bit in the future, because I had a very similar note about Tom. When they first wake up, I think it's like we're now in like Act 1, and they wake up in the assimilation chamber, and he basically loses his head, loses his cool. He's like, "Oh, come on, we're in the House of Horrors here, Chakotay. Come on, there's a few more potential drones here for you to assimilate." And the same thing, you're like, this guy's, I think he's a lieutenant by this point in season 6. He should be keeping his cool way more than he is, and it doesn't quite gel with me.
Yeah. They've seen the Borg a lot by this stage. Well, actually, have they? That's a good question. I feel like they have.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tom losing his cool, he just has like a recurring theme of this episode. Yeah, he doesn't spot the cube, or doesn't say anything about the cube, and just really just loses his cool. And you think he should be better than this. I know if this was like season 1, season 2, Tom Paris, I could buy that. Season 6, the man should have grown a bit by now, a bit more professional Starfleet.
Because they haven't seen it's damaged by that point, have they? So he panics because he just thinks it's an ordinary Borg ship.
Well, I guess they would have seen it's been damaged, but I guess they don't know that it's only got kids on it.
No.
They assume it's still full of thousands of drones.
I mean, he had the best look of it out of all the crew.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Something's up with this Borg cube. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a bit of a question. I don't know if there's going to be an answer, but I was going to throw it out there. I got a bit confused on my second watch or something. When the kids first make themselves known, I think it's when 7 is now beamed onto the cube. I think after they've done their little negotiating, the kids talk as the Borg. You have the Borg voice, we are the Borg. You'll be assimilated. They have that voice out of the speakers kind of thing. But then the kids talk individually. And I know they're kind of made their own collective, but surely they'd have just always spoken through the Borg voice thing. So I guess what I'm asking is what is the Borg? Is the Borg the drones individually, or is the Borg the collective? I always thought that the Borg was kind of like an AI or some kind of central computer that used the processing power of the drones. Does that make sense? Can you guys see where I'm coming from with my confusion?
Yeah. I mean, that's how I imagine Borg operated as well. But these Borg in the ship, they seem to be acting like they should be that way, but they are not linked, are they?
Yeah, it's almost like they're doing both. They're being this collective AI, but they're not. Maybe you're right. Maybe this is them just trying to be that.
But aren't they this group is sort of we find out later discarded from or cast out from the collective. But the way I sort of viewed the Borg as operating was that you've got the Queen, and they all sort of function around her. But then she's got some kind of collective independence or autonomy to make those high level decisions. Kind of like a beehive, isn't it? Isn't all the decisions come to her, or I don't know.
I guess it's like how many decisions is the Queen making? Is she making drone 2 of 12 go to this relay and do this thing here? Is she got that sort of micromanaging level of detail, or does she just sort of send 6 cubes, assimilate that sector? I guess I'm a little bit confused. What the hierarchy of the Borg is like. They have a Queen, but do they have any bureaucracy?
Yeah, it's a good point.
So, is there a Queen on every cube?
No.
That's a great question. I think no, but possibly, because we see that the Queen dies a few times throughout Star Trek, and we keep seeing her come back, the exact same Queen, exact same body and stuff. So she's obviously some kind of clone.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I said no, and I always thought it was always one Queen, but maybe you're right. Maybe it is. I mean, yeah, it was the same looking Queen, but I just assumed it was the same. Yeah, a clone.
Could be a clone of that Queen. Yeah.
Because Janeway definitely kills the Queen, and Picard kills the Queen
multiple times.
Oh well, yeah. So, and I guess that also begs the question: is the Queen a single entity somewhere within the Borg, or is she just part of that AI, part of that collective, who isn't? You could not extract the Queen as a personality.
But is it an AI though?
I have no idea. That's just what I'm.
I feel like
assuming
it's
the Borg is.
almost like a hive intelligence.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
But even with a hive intelligence, it would need some kind of, as I joked a minute ago, it would need some kind of bureaucracy. It would need some kind of management. It would need something. It would need slack, at least.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, now I don't know. They've been my favourite Star Trek enemy for years, and then turns out I know very little about them.
They're the best enemies.
I guess that's kind of the beauty of it, is like they can sort of be whatever they need to be for the story they're trying to tell, I suppose.
Yeah, they are, to me, a brilliant villain, but then they're also, I think I can see what people say when they said they were a bit overused in Voyager, is that they kind of became a little bit of a catch-all. There was a moment, I know this is wider Trek again, but when they reappeared in season 3 and then sort of the changelings got pushed to the background, it was like, yeah, maybe. Like I know they're Picard's ultimate, but still, like, yeah. But then they got good again, so
Because we had like the Borg in season 2 of Picard, so Picard's already dealt with the Borg.
Yeah.
In this show, though, I tell you what, I actually was it season 2 or season 3? I can't remember. The concept of the Borg negotiating and being good, I was like, that is genius. I love that. I didn't quite like the execution, but I love that idea. Like, oh my god, that's great.
In this episode?
No. In like Picard, was it season 2 or season 3?
Right. Got you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm now tangenting. We don't tend to stick to
no
what we're talking about. We will happily ramble about anything we like. I think in the very first episode of this podcast, we said, if we choose an episode of Voyager and we end up spending the entire time talking about Next Gen, that's fine. Who cares? Whatever. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
Well, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I still reckon the best Borg episodes are in TNG, personally. You got, is it Measure of a Man? No, it's not. Ignore it. Cut that out, Dan. What's the one with? It's in season 2. It's the same season, and it's got Whoopi Goldberg.
Brilliant episode.
Yeah, you got the one where Q flings them to the
when
Borg.
The Borg first appears.
Yeah,
and then they come back.
You've got Best of Both
Worlds, and then my favourite Borg episode, I Borg.
I Borg is that with Hugh?
With Hugh, and I just think that demonstrates, like, I don't know what the Borg are like when they're separated from their collective, and they are actually quite okay. You could have sit down and a beer with them, potentially, because obviously then they join the collective again. You wouldn't want to touch them, but So
okay, I see. That's actually a great point. Let me just find my note on that. Okay, yeah, I thought of Iborg and Hugh with this episode because it's a very similar story in the sense you've got some drones. They've been disconnected, and that it's almost like they're trying to redo like the Voyager version of Iborg. Now, I don't think this episode is as good as Iborg. I mean, Iborg is better. They do the same kind of thing. Like in Iborg, I think they do like a virus to infect Hugh to go back to the collective, and in this one, there's like a biological weapon they're talking about. But it's like a similar kind of thing, introducing something into the Borg to try and destroy the collective. I don't think Janeway's biological weapon would be as widespread as the one that Picard was tangling with. Iborg was better than this episode. This episode is still pretty good, but I did have a thought about the bio weapon that the Doctor was asked to make. Would the Doctor's programming allow him to make a biological weapon, especially one that, in effect, could cause mass casualties, potentially a genocide? I would assume there'd be some base programming that would say, "Yeah, no, you can't do that."
Yeah, good point.
I think the point with the Doctor is that he broke his programming multiple times throughout the series, and then isn't there that episode? Oh, what's the episode where he glitches? It's a great episode where he imagines himself as the captain of Voyager in the emergency
episode.
And then he's got, and then the extra pips appear, so he has the rank of captain, and then the crew see it all. And then the 4 pips appear, and Jamer's like, "Oh, nice touch." So I think, point being is, I think he is probably an actual AI. So the whole thing of him Is that
Yeah.
I know he was written, and they sort of hinted it early on. I can't remember the episodes anymore. Again, that there were certain protocols that he couldn't overwrite, but then we see him breaking them quite a few times, or learning to get around them. Is probably more.
That's
accurate.
a good point. In like season one of the first few episodes, like the first 5, he's complaining to Janeway. He's like, people turn me on, and then they people.
Yeah, different Star Trek.
Yeah, been watching some X-rated Star Trek. Fine, I'll keep. Yeah. People turn the Doctor on, but then they don't turn him off when they leave. They don't activate. Yeah. They activate the Doctor, but don't deactivate him when they leave the room, and they change his programming so he can have more autonomy. So yeah, probably that's the answer. Susant is over 6 seasons, he's evolved, and now can make bioweapons.
And I think
good for the Doctor.
But I think there's also a point where Harry or someone from engineering like link directly into his programming as well, don't they? They're like, when they're pulling out all those little plastic see-through cards that look cool.
Oh, the isolinear chips.
That's right. That's what they are. Yeah. And then they like swap them, and it's like, oh, we've changed his subroutine. Technically true, but yeah. So anyway, point being, I think,
I think it's pretty. Well, I think it's pretty obvious, pretty well known, I guess, that the Doctor has probably one of the best character arcs in all of Star Trek, like from where he was to what he becomes. Like, what a journey! Like actual, real character development. I love it.
Yeah. But while we're talking about that pathogen, I think it's interesting where they say, "Oh, we've got this pathogen. Okay, handy, convenient," and then she orders the Doctor to synthesize more, which he does. And then everyone's all like, oh, they're just kids. This isn't an option that can even be considered. And then Tuvok pipes in, I mean, they are murderers. And we see that when in their botched assimilation attempts, which was quite weirdly confronting. And then Seven's like, yeah, but I know they'll kill the hostages if they have to. She says that. They say this all at the very start of the episode. And so Janeway's response is just to, right, well, if 7 being mum doesn't work, then they're done. Then those guys are done. I'm gonna kill me some Borg orphans. Like,
yeah.
She has 2 options.
not. I don't know. It's just like no. If 7's mum tactic doesn't work, they're out. No questions.
I mean, yeah, like a very quick third option from Dan is that they know a bit later on that the Borg have discarded these drones. So another plan could be somehow transport those drones onto Voyager, get them in the brig, and then work on them there. Then
True.
Kidnap them basically. That's not death. That's better. Kidnapping is better than killing.
But it's not like they're going anywhere. They're not going back to the collective, are they? So I mean,
although I feel like what's his name? The main, well, not the main guy, the leader of the Borg. Oh, they called him First. That's right. Yeah. Hated him. Not gonna lie. I know you meant to, but
so annoying. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about him.
And then when he died, I was like, oh no, it felt kind of bad.
Tragic. Yeah.
But it's kind of a cool sort of callback though, that you kind of see his leadership style reflected in the erratic strategy. When they're capturing the Delta Fly, they don't really know what they're doing. They're just trying all these weird things. And then when they're fighting Voyager, and that aside from the fact they're all children, like he's clearly a bit particularly unstable of the bunch.
But he came out second. I say came out. I mean, he was second, wasn't he? In terms of the line of how they were. I don't know how do you describe it now. Created or produced or assimilated.
When they came out of the maturation chambers.
Yeah. But because he was more dominant, I guess he got given the title of first. So it's like, why? You're the most unstable one, but.
Which is, kind of a good analogy for like real world workplaces where toxic personalities can rise to the top. I think we've all got a bit of experience of that for our professional lives.
Yeah, but would
No comment.
would that happen in a collective, in a normal Borg ship? Wouldn't, would it? Because they'd all be the
I
same.
assume not, because there would be no hierarchy.
Yeah, there is no individuality.
Yeah.
They've kind of like ad hoc to this little collective together. Okay, actually, on the topic of them being like disconnected from the link, and when the Borg do that, when the Borg sever the link, surely there should be a protocol that the cube self-destructs. Why would you leave a cube, even damaged, just floating about? There's no purpose.
Yeah, and that was absolutely one of my outstanding questions. What happened to the cube? They just they brought them onto the ship.
I assume Janeway blew it up.
Yeah, like chucked civvy clothes on, which is super stylish, I might add. And then just, then their skin color goes back to sort of less of that green tinge. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, okay, what happened to this cube? Surely there was something on there that you guys could have used.
Yeah.
Surely.
I have another question about that as well, actually, is that we see in the episode another Borg maturation chamber fails during the episode with the baby in it. So 2 questions. Well, one's I guess like a thought. Surely there are other maturation chambers with other Borg babies and kids in there. So they either leave them behind or blow it up. Maybe there's like, a couple hundred kids in that ship. Who knows? But also, the Borg baby survives. It's in the sickbay, but it's not mentioned at the end of the episode, and I don't remember if it comes back. Do you guys remember if that baby makes another appearance?
So I think that question is the biggest question of this episode, because when you told me what episode we were looking at, after I watched it, I saw this was like the top Reddit topic, and I think they've answered it. Brandon Brager, potentially Berman, I'm not sure, said something that the baby was handed back to its planet off screen.
So
such a scramble. But that's what I heard happened. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but. Yeah,
I guess that is like the only answer, isn't it? What could have happened, but it was a bit of an oversight, I thought, for them not to address that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was an extremely creepy baby as well. I was kind of scared of it when I saw it.
It was pretty. I couldn't. I'm pretty sure it was like a doll. I don't think it was a real baby, but I couldn't quite make it out with all the attachments and things on it. I couldn't quite. I don't know. So I know like there's a lot of rules around having baby actors especially like newborn kind of things.
From even like 24 years ago?
Good question, actually.
Sure.
Don't know. Yeah. You would like to think that in the mid-90s there were rules about having basically newborns on set. Who knows? Yeah.
Just reading about that. How did they return it to the people? Did they just like...
Well, at the end, Janeway does say, "Oh, we've sort of reached out to some of these people here to try and find, any nearby ships of these races." So
they actually approached the Borg to give the baby back to them.
No. They're like what the race of that species was before.
Oh, I see. I've assumed they were going to give it back to the Borg. No, because I'm just reading on the Wikipedia because I was interested in this question as well. Okay, I got it now.
I mean, they're at war with the Borg and like, hey, by the way,
here's your car, kid back.
Prisoner exchange. We got a baby.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
I mean, they're all about, what is it, cultural distinctiveness and technological uniqueness. So there you go. That's something they wouldn't have had before.
I'm just also reading about the 4 other kids in the episode, in the next episode, in another episode called Ashes to Ashes. And
yeah, they come back quite a few times. The other kids do, especially each
episode's in 11 episodes. A lot of episodes.
The twins, absolutely useless. They have like one line. They don't do anything. They don't need to be there.
No.
In this episode, they don't even have a line.
No, they have one line.
Do they? I'm pretty sure Seven just said, what was their name? It was like Rami, or I wrote it down.
Rami and Sami.
Yeah, Rami.
Yeah, I didn't write them down.
Oh, I wrote it down where it was. Can't find it, but anyway, it was. Oh, there we go. Azan and Rebbe. As far as I was
maybe.
tracking, they didn't say a word the entire episode. Thought this was odd. And then I thought, hold on, maybe I'm assuming here, maybe they actually can't speak. But then if they can, not even one line, like
It's all about pay. I know this even back in the 90s for actors and stuff, like guest actors and guest stars, is if you say so many words or so many lines, you get paid more and you get credit and stuff. But if you ever see, if ever like on a show, there's like an extra or like the main character talks like, I don't know, like someone behind a desk or like a concierge or something, and they say something to that person, that side actor, and they don't respond or they just nod and it feels a bit awkward, it's because they don't get paid. They get paid like per line or something like that. And if they say so many lines, they get paid more.
Yeah.
right, okay.
So that's why you often have side characters in TV shows but don't say anything.
I was just looking at the episode Ashes to Ashes when Azan does speak. He has 2 lines. One is to say, counter, grid 10. And the other line later in the episode is, they're cubes. And that's it. So I think that's his entire...
Good. Counter, grid 10, they're cubes. That's 5 words. So if he jumped over into the six words, I wonder what the pay difference would have been. But on the topic of this is going to come out wrong. But on the topic of children in Star Trek, okay, I think Voyager of all Star Treks, at least that I'm tracking, does a pretty good job of including kids in its stories. Like
yes,
you've got Icheb, you've got Azan and Rebby, even though they're not in it, so terrible example. But then you've got Naomi Wildman, and as recurring characters, and that with really good storylines and really good arcs. So
yeah, I like how they had Naomi Wildman like throughout the whole show, and you saw her like a little kid and she grows up. I think she's great how she forms a bond with Seven. Yeah, I think she's a great character. And like they have Nog in DS9, who's great, but he's not great when he's younger. He gets better as he gets older.
Turns into one of my favorite characters, though. Actually, Nog.
Yeah, but he's a big twat in the first season or two.
And DS9 does kids, and I don't like any of their kid episodes. Like what's the one, the Calamari 1, 2, 3. That one. There's a kid in that one, yeah. You know when the game, kid's so annoying. But
that's a famously bad episode, Tom. That's not a good example.
I don't remember a good kid episode.
And like Jake Sisko, I think Jake's for the most part pretty good. I quite like Jake. I wish they could have used him a bit more, especially in the later seasons. But him and Ben Sisko's relationship, really good. It's a good father-son thing going on.
Jake and Nog's relationship is great, and I love the idea that he was like, no, I don't want to join Starfleet Academy. I want to become a journalist.
Yeah.
Yep, love it.
Yeah, I like that.
Great. Because everyone you assume in all of Trek, they're all, at least, I guess, it's where all the main characters focus, but you're always assumed that everyone wants to join Starfleet. And then this guy comes along and says, no, I'm a captain. My dad's a captain. I'm like, no, I'm good.
And I think Wesley kind of sucks because he's this like wonder kid, and it's not really relatable to anyone.
Yeah.
Unless you are a wonder kid, which...
Do you remember that episode with adult Wesley? When Q gives him lets him see what he's like looking at him. So, that's
amazing. I have pecs. Yeah.
Before we move on from the topic of children characters in Star Trek, I can't even fathom what they were thinking when they killed off Icheb and Picard.
They killed off Icheb and Picard?
Oh my god!
Sorry, I haven't watched all of Picard yet.
Oh, okay. I thought you
Tom is not up to date.
Okay, right, okay. I thought you saw it, and because it was such a terrible death scene, you didn't realize because he was literally on a. Sorry, I shouldn't have spoiled it.
No, not at all.
And he's just like 7, and then dies, and that's it. And it was shameful. And they got the actor back for it as well, which was.
And they did a similar thing with Hugh as well. They offed Hugh, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
His death was a little better than Icheb's, but. I want to bring a bit of a chat about something which they could have done in the episode. They didn't really, but I feel like they could have done it. It might have been a good direction for the episode to go. Because I mentioned earlier that I didn't think that the parallel to the Hugh episode, the Iborg, was as strong. So I don't think it was a good idea to just copy that, essentially, plot for plot. I think they could have focused the episode a bit more about these kids being cut off from the Borg. and that sort of parallel, a real life parallel to being cut off from, like certain communities or certain religions which practice that. Like, if they don't meet certain standards or they are a certain way, they can get basically disowned by this community they're part of. And I think that might have been a pretty interesting direction the episode could have gone. And I just, personally happen to know a few people from a certain religious group, which that group does sometimes practice, say, shunning certain members if they don't conform, or if they are a certain way. I think a good example is if they are like LGBTQ plus. If they it's pretty hard, I think impossible for them to remain a member of that faith, if at least, or the organized version of the faith, if they come out. So I think there could have been a cool conversation there about what it's like to have been excluded from your entire social network or your support network. The episode didn't do that at all. I think it could have been a cool thing for them to talk about, these kids being banished, and they don't want to be, for something that's through no fault of their own, because they are damaged. The Borg say they're damaged, so they could have gone that route.
Yeah, I think it's definitely parallels there, and it's something the episode could have gone down. I think with the Borg though, there was no chance of them ever coming back to the collective, no matter what they did. There's no way they could have, said, I will make adjustments and come back to the collective, because the collective are like, no, you have no option here.
That is a good point. I suppose with these real world religions, there is a chance of basically kind of like a repenting kind of thing, isn't it? You can change who you are, quote marks, and stop being gay as you do, and try and rejoin. But yeah, you're right. The Borg won't do that, because I guess what I was trying to think is, like, you could draw a parallel with the Borg being kind of like a cult.
Yeah,
not saying these religions are cults, but like cults do exist, and some of them do this. So I think Star Trek does do a pretty good job occasionally of drawing real world parallels to issues and topics and things a bit heavier. I think this could have been a cool way to explore that. Yeah,
you're right, because they didn't really delve into it, but I guess we have to make up our own minds what it would be like to be in their shoes, in terms of how they felt, and maybe that explained why. I actually hated First in this episode. I thought he was such an ass all the way through. But going into this and having a bit more context to how they felt, instead of just like flat out being annoying like he was, would have been, I don't know, better.
Yeah, we didn't really get any sort of like, apart from First, who was like, oh no, I'm going to stay as a Borg. All the others, they seemed pretty okay leaving the Borg. They didn't seem to bother them at all. And when they were on Voyager at the end, they were fine. There didn't appear to be any sort of like side effects. I know we have that kind of story, like a long-term story with Seven regaining her humanity, but again, I've not watched it in a while. But I don't think there was those sort of parallels, like a kind of like a religious parallel. I'm not saying it has to be like a direct religious thing, but I don't remember seeing that. Anyway, that was my one heavier topic of the thing.
It's good.
It's a good one. Good. Because I think religions, a lot of them nowadays are kind of about conformance. And I definitely noticed that with the Borg. And on that cult-like sort of point, First was literally dying. And when he died, his last words were, "We are Borg." So even if they had got him over to Voyager, I don't think there was any chance of redemption, as Tom pointed out.
Yeah, actually, that's actually an even more interesting point. Actually, they could have kept him around First and basically tried to de-radicalize him, as it were. Young people do get radicalized by certain religions. It's not always entirely their fault that happens. It's kind of a bit of self-choice in there. But if you're young and you can be manipulated, yeah, I think it could have been very interesting to maybe have gone down that route. Like, I'm going to keep going on this sort of like heavy topic. It's a bit topical in the news. I forget her name. That young British girl who went off and joined ISIS.
Oh yeah.
A few years. I can't remember her name.
A meme or something, isn't it? Or something like that.
I can't remember. But the UK revoked her citizenship, and she's now still in a Syrian refugee camp. And recently, we don't tend to try and date this podcast, but kind of hard not to. Recently, her appeal got rejected by the UK High Court, and obviously, I'm not a lawyer, and I can't speak on this any authority. But when I read the article, and my gut reaction was, I don't know if that was the right choice. Obviously, the UK government and these lawyers, High Court judges thought it was, but in my mind, I'm probably wrong, but in my mind, she's a British citizen. She was born here, and so she's British. So and she was, from my understanding, radicalised in Britain. So in my mind, she's our problem, and we shouldn't get rid of her. I think she should be brought back to the UK, punished accordingly. But I think she's our problem to solve, if that makes sense. Yes, she was radicalised by ISIS, which isn't in the UK, but she's still partly our responsibility. I don't think we should wash our hands with her. Or say is that you could have had a story arc with the first and that happening, maybe.
I guess they're worried it might set a precedent, you can go and join ISIS and then potentially get welcomed back. Well, obviously punished,
totally.
But yeah.
I'm not saying welcome back, opens arms here. Here's a council house, here's a job. So I meant basically throw the book at her as it were, which I think is what they did. They tried to make an example of her by stripping her citizenship and continually rejecting her appeals. But yeah, that is just my uninformed opinion on that one.
I mean, going back to that sort of the religious fanaticism, I think that conversation between Seven and Janeway in her ready room, where Janeway said, "Look, maybe we can bring them on board Voyager. We can look at turning them back into call it normal children." But what was far more interesting about that conversation was Seven's comment about her becoming human again was actually extremely hard. But then, ironically, it was the order instilled in her by being part of the Borg collective that she credits as giving her the strength and resilience required to regain her individuality. So it's interesting. So I think that was quite well handled. So maybe they did touch on that cult-like element a little bit. There's the conformance and it being different, and the cult-like being several elements of, call it, bad. And then on the other hand, it's wow, that's the only reason I'm human again, considering the circumstances, because that gave me the strength to see it through. It was, but yeah, it was. I thought that was probably, to be honest, probably the best part of the episode in a way.
That was a really good conversation with Seven and James. I really enjoyed that. And you're right, that's such a good parallel take to what I'm sort of chatting about. It's they did kind of touch on it, and Seven took it in she'd drawn strength from her former cultness, I suppose.
I mean, the if we're going a bit more down the Borg action side of it, I think that we've sort of touched on this, what happened to the cube, but the other part of that convo was the larger Borg collective receiving their distress call, the kids' distress call, and we're like, nah, see ya. Is this Borg-like behavior? I mean, I can see the argument for the greater good that you're like, nah, we need to get it's not serving the collective benefit, so we need to cut them away. But leaving, as was sort of touched on, leaving an entire Borg cube behind to be piloted by 5 kids feels like something that shouldn't really be ignored.
Yeah, that's gotta be worse.
Yeah, and wouldn't they want to know what happened? 5 kids left over, and then there's an entire Borg cube, and they're just like, yeah,
that'll be fine.
The worst thing that could happen to the Borg now is these 5 kids take this cube, go try and assimilate a planet, succeed, and now you've got rival Borg factions. Oh, crazy. Yeah, the Borg, stupid. Who knew?
Well, at least in this case, gaps in the story. Could be both. Don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think with any sort of TV show like this, the writers don't expect 3 nerds to be talking about it 20 odd years later.
Yeah, and we're just 3 nerds.
Analysing it yeah. Actually, speaking of things that were slightly idiotic, Harry Kim.
Oh my god.
When he first of all, he wakes up on the Delta Flyer, and he gets in touch with Voyager, and the first conversation they have, Janeway's like, Harry, or she goes, Ensign, how do you feel like a hike? And he's like, I could use the exercise. At that point, he has no idea that the Borg cube is only manned by 5 kids, and it's what's going on. He's been told nothing. For all he knows, he's walking into a full cube. That was a little silly, I thought. He had no idea what he was getting into. But when he gets to the shield generator, and he's placing charges, and the little girl, I can't remember the name, the girl comes up there with the playing cards, and she's like, this one looks like 7. And he goes, oh, is she your friend? While reaching for his phaser. Idiot. He should have tried to talk with her. He could have broken through, but he didn't even try. What idiot. That's why he's an ensign still. That's why he never gets promoted.
So, firstly, hilarious that the children didn't find him.
I know.
So you're like, okay, these guys are real amateurs. That was amusing. But the fact that he was then completely useless was even more amusing. And then nearly dies because of it. So I think, was it at this point that he'd been demoted? Surely, he'd be into his demotion.
No, he never got promoted.
I thought he got demoted. Oh no, Paris got demoted.
The best thing is Paris got promoted, demoted, and promoted again before Harry got promoted once. I love it. Apparently, according to, I think it's Garrett Wang is the actor.
Yep.
I think that's his name.
That's him.
I think he said that, and it's obviously now done, the rumor mill, is that he had a disagreement with, I think it's Brandon Barger, one of the producers.
Surely it would have been
like
Berman. Berman's the known.
Oh, maybe it was Berman, yeah. It was somebody.
One.
Yeah. And basically he just said that no, Harry Kim will never get promoted, and he's kind of screwed him over a little bit, and which is a shame, if that's true. Because it is so stupid that he's 7 years, doesn't get any promotion, no more pips.
You can't go down from ensign, can you?
You can become
crewman.
So at least he didn't get demoted.
Is no pip. Also, the away team in general were aside from Tom's outburst, the poker scene were completely pointless to that episode.
They were. Chakotay does nothing.
Yeah.
They do nothing.
No, it was that was interesting. And when they're captured, I thought Neelix's dream, or whatever you want to call it, of being a simulated nightmare was interesting. I don't know what it really served. I'm assuming here that it was a bit of a scare tactic for the audience, but it's been done many times before in a similar way, so it felt a little off. But
yeah.
Have
you guys got anything else you want to bring up on this episode before we start wrapping up?
I mean, I think when first said his last words, "We are Borg," it would have been good if one of the characters said, "You were Borg." And then it sort of ended. I just think it would have been, and then he dies.
It's like the ultimate twist of the knife.
I don't know. I just think it would have made the episode a little bit more dark, but cool.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Yeah, right there with you.
That's my
bumped it up a star.
That's
bumped
my
up
thought.
The rating.
How about you, Susant?
I think realizing that these children were murderers was pretty intense. I know Star Trek's great at tackling those kind of themes, but that was a big one. I would say that this episode had a great one-liner by Captain Helium, as I call her sometimes. When the cube's on Voyager's view screen. And then she just says, "Not today, not by you," or something. I can't quite get the helium right, but it's I love Captain Janeway. Don't get me wrong, but
oh yeah, I'm a huge Janeway fan. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's wrap this thing up. So we're gonna go around, do the wrap up review, and then we're gonna give it what we think it should be rated on IMDb, and then we're gonna look at what the actual IMDb rating is.
What we think it should be rated on IMDb.
Yeah, what you think, not necessarily what it is, what you would rate it.
Okay.
And then we compare what we think it is to IMDb.
Okay.
Normally, me and Tom are pretty good, actually, getting it fairly close. It's nice when we get spot on. Okay, yeah, I quite like the episode overall. I didn't love it. It was not. I would describe this episode as sort of like, I'm gonna say like mid-tier Voyager. Like it's decent Voyager. Stick it on, have a great time. It's not anything that's gonna blow me away, but it's not trash either. It's just like run-of-the-mill standard Voyager. This is what I think of Voyager as like an episode. But I did like it. It had some pretty good moments, and yeah, as we spoke about today, some pretty good talking points and things that made me think. I always like when Star Trek makes me think, and I can come to this podcast and ramble about something stupid. So yeah, I quite liked it. For an IMDb, yeah, I think I'm going to sort of go down that sort of run-of-the-mill. It was pretty good. I'm going to go 7 exactly.
Okay.
Tom, do you want to go?
I really enjoyed this episode. There are a lot of unanswered questions and silly actions that took place that make you think, why?
And no knife turning at the end?
Exactly. That would have just bumped the rating up considerably. But I did enjoy it. I thought the Borg cube was really well designed. I liked the sort of wrecked look of it. I liked all the actors, even first because, like, as annoying as he was, he played the part of this, like, person you just wanted to slap and be like, oh my god, stop being so annoying, really well. And I just enjoyed the sort of the Borg, that sort of little hierarchy they'd created on their little Borg ship. I like the special effects, I like the acting, so I'm going to give it quite a low score for what I thought was a good episode, but I think there were too many sort of holes for me to give it a very good score. I'm going to give it a 6.7.
Not bad. Susant?
Yeah, so I'd say overall I liked the Seven and Janeway arc. The away party were completely useless, but to be honest, I'm not that keen on Chakotay anyway, so no issues there. The Borg Kid side was cool. Love the poker scene. Classic cheesy Star Trek thing that you come to expect. I also thought the actor that portrayed First did a great job because I completely despised him. Then the Ready Room conversation between Seven and Janeway was fantastic. Classic Trek, exactly what I expect of Trek, and the highlight of that episode. I am not very pleased with how they resolved the story. It left me with quite a lot of questions. We covered them. What happened to the cube? I had sort of considered what happened to everyone but Icheb, but I think we sort of covered the other kids a little bit. What happened to the baby? There's a few things going on there. So overall, probably, I'm gonna give it a 6.5. I don't know how you can differentiate between a 6.5 and a 6.6 as IMDb do, so I'm gonna go with the half score.
No, that's perfectly fine. Quite a spread there then, like from a 6.5 all the way up to a 7. All right, let's find out what IMDb actually give it. On IMDb, the collective gets 7.3.
Wow.
Higher than I thought.
Actually, that's a touch higher than I thought. I thought I was being generous with my 7, actually.
Okay, yeah. I think what is important about it is that it introduces the character of Icheb.
That's true, and he's a good character. He goes quite well in those 11 episodes of television he's in.
Yeah, and also it's probably, if you were to it's probably kind of an essential episode for the Borg related episodes, because if you didn't watch it, you wouldn't know anything about Icheb, or you wouldn't know where he came from.
It's kind of what we found, like, recently on this podcast, me and Tom had an Enterprise episode, and it was part 2 of 3. It was a 3-story arc, and we decided only to watch that one episode. We didn't watch all 3. And we both came away a bit like, we didn't quite, it was fine, kind of liked it. But I was like, I reckon if you watch all 3, it's really good. And I was correct. The IMDb rating was like 8 or 8.1 or something. It was a pretty high score, and I was like, that makes perfect sense. So you're probably right. In a broader context of Voyager and the Borg and Icheb, it probably should score higher than what we've given it. Yeah. But that's why we do this podcast, just to get a a random look at some random Star Trek. Well, that was great. Only thing left to do now is to decide what we're going to watch next. Now, Susant, you're not going to be here this next time. That's okay. You can still join in this bit of conversation. So we're going to select the episode for the next podcast. We've got a few rules and things we try to subscribe to. We do watch two-parters. If we get part one, we'll watch part two and vice versa. I was just talking about three-parters. I think we are, if we land on another three-parter, we are going to try and watch all three as an experiment. We'll see. But we don't watch long story arcs, so if we get episode 3 of season 2 Discovery, we're not watching the whole season Discovery. We're just going to go in blind, as it were. If we somehow get the same episode we've already selected, we're just going to basically flip a coin and go up or down. So the new rules for this season of our podcast, Warp Factor Unknown, is the previous show we watched can't be in the next podcast episode. So, for example, we've just spoke about Voyager. We can't watch Voyager next time. It's sort of out of the running this time. But it comes back after that. And if we get the same show twice in this season of Warp Factor Unknown, then we cut it for the rest of the season. So if we get, we've already had one episode of Enterprise this season, we get another one next, then that's it. 2 episodes max per season of Warp Factor Unknown. Just try and keep that variety there. We'll see if it works. That's all the rules, and that's all my waffling done. Tom, could you take it away and select us the show to watch?
Absolutely. Okay, so I have my randomizer 3, which according to my list, Enterprise.
Hey, Enterprise again. Wicked.
We can,
Fantastic.
that abides by the rules.
That abides by the rules. So we had Enterprise, I think it was 2 episodes ago. I mean, it was 3. 2 episodes ago, I think it was. And we're hanging out with this episode. But then that'll be it. There'll be no more Enterprise for the remainder of this season, which is 10 episodes. So fantastic. So, we had season 4 last time.
If I go between 1 and 4 on this one.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get like part 1 or part 3 of the episode we watched last time. That
would be good. Right, here we go. So, between 1 and 4. 3 we have.
Ooh, season 3. We got the Xindi. Season 3 of Enterprise is a long story arc. It's a whole season-long arc. And I quite like it. Bit cheesy in places, but I do quite like it.
I'm just checking how many episodes there are. It appears there's 24 episodes. Yeah, 24 episodes. So I'm now going to roll for the episode we watch. Go. Okay, we have episode 21.
21,
is,
so, like 2/3 of the way through.
E squared.
E squared. Right, let me find a synopsis for E squared. Oh, I love this episode. It's a great episode. Okay, an accident during an attempt to use a Xindi subspace corridor places the Enterprise in a bizarre confrontation with itself. It's a time travel episode. It's really good. Son, do you remember that one?
Yes, it's really good.
Yeah. Spoiler. Tom, do you want spoilers?
Please.
Or do you want spoilers? Cool. Great. I love this episode. Yeah, they go into the future, I think it is, and they meet another version of the Enterprise that got stuck, and they basically made it into like a generational ship so they could come back and meet this Enterprise to solve whatever the problem is they're trying to solve. And it's great.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
You see like all the descent. It's one of those ones where they all have like everyone like married off and had kids, and now we're on like generation 3 or 4 of their descendants, and it's cool. I like it.
No, that sounds good.
Good
episode.
That. Yeah.
I just want a little shootout, I guess. I know you don't want to do your whole Dream Bridge crew, but what if we select one role?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So what? Like one like station or rank, and
you choose
so
our like we've got your captain and your XO or your second in command. What if we each go around and just think of one? So I know captains, obviously that's a big one, so I won't do that one. But if you were to go to your second officer, who would it be and why? I might have to look up the options because it's been a little while.
Yeah.
But if we go through, we've got Will Riker from Next Gen. Enterprise, we've got T'Pol. Yeah, that's right.
The S9, you got Kira.
Yeah. Voyager,
you got Chakotay.
Interesting. interesting.
Original series, you got Spock.
That's.
Yeah. Discovery, you have Saru. Strange New World, I can't remember her name.
Number 2. Yeah, is that what he calls her?
I can't remember what her name is. But she's great.
Yeah.
Lower Decks, you have Ransom.
Yes.
Or is it Ransom?
Yes.
The really buff guy. Yeah. There isn't really one for Picard. It's just like side characters. He hasn't really got a
Picard
ship
had
as such.
oh my god, I've forgotten her name.
Is it? Oh, Raffi.
Raffi, that's right.
Raffi. Yeah, I guess
Raffi.
you could count.
For season 1 and 2, and then season 3 was kind of all over the shop, but it was at one
It
point
was a bit all over the shop. Yeah. That's most of the shows, isn't it? I think.
Yes.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go first. Screw you guys. I'm going first. I'm jumping in.
For it.
I know. I got an answer.
Go for it.
And I didn't know the answer to this question until we listed them out, and I was like, oh yeah, that one. Saru, Discovery.
Really?
100%. Yeah, he's incredibly competent. He cares about the crew, and he cares about the ship, the captain, the mission. He genuinely loves Starfleet, and yeah, his instincts tend to be correct. He'll push back against the captain when he needs to, and which is really hard to do against Michael Burnham. Yeah, I think Saru would be my preferred EXO.
Yeah, okay. That's a great pick. I wasn't expecting that at all. But I think also
No, because like my initial reaction was Riker or Spock, but thinking about it, I was like, no, Saru's one of the best characters in Discovery.
He is a great character.
And he walks cool. He's so. Sorry, Tom. Who's the actor who plays him?
Doug Williams. Is that right?
It's Doug something. Doug Jones or something.
Doug Jones. That's right.
Yeah.
It's Doug Jones. Yeah.
And just that swagger he has
Yeah.
everywhere. That fantastic gait.
Imagine the actor having to do that though.
Because he's played a lot of monsters in horror films because he is so athletic.
He's
with
very
the way
tall,
he works.
isn't he? And
Yes.
very thin. Yeah. Tom, do you want to go?
Yeah, I've just got a short one. I would say Kira. I just think
All right. Okay.
passionate and just would speak her mind, and yeah, just generally would be nice to have on the ship. Bit of
She would kick your
Yeah.
ass.
she would, but in a nice way. Yeah.
Wow.
I'd enjoy it.
Learning from Tom here.
Yeah,
I actually chose that.
That's my pick.
So she could kick his ass in a nice way.
Son?
I'm going to be a bit predictable here, but Riker, 100%. And weirdly, it's not just because I actually think he's extremely competent, and all of his womanizing aside, I think he's especially excellent for Picard. It's their relationship that they continue to push each other to just get the best out of each other. Like that episode, Measure of Man, the Data episode, where he just says, "I am going to try to prove that Data is not a man," and then Picard's like, "I'm going to try and prove that he is a man," and that dynamic, it's extraordinary.
I have a question though. So we're only just picking one character here for this one dream crew, as it were. If you was doing that thing where you made your whole dream bridge crew, would you still choose Riker if you didn't have Picard as captain?
Oh, good question. Yeah, it's kind of similar. Like, if Kirk wasn't your pick, I guess, would you still choose Spock as well?
Yeah, because having like Kirk and Kira just wouldn't work. They'd butt heads too much.
So weird.
They don't complement each other.
I think.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would. But I would say that not season 1 Riker. When he gets like when he gets seduced by, well, I don't know if it's seduced.
Oh yeah.
Inveigled by Q, and he's convinced that he's a god, and you're like, oh wow.
Oh, that episode.
Yeah. Also, I love the way he sits on a chair. So
Yeah.
it's just hilarious.
It's one of his best traits. Yeah, I love it. I enjoyed that actually. That was quite fun. Todd, maybe we could bring this back. Like every episode, we'll choose a new crew member that we like.
I think
I
so.
like that. That's good. Maybe we'll try and work in from now on. I think that'll wrap us up for today. So, Thank you for listening to Warp Factor Unknown. I've been your host, Dan, and I've been joined by my co-host, Tom, and our guest co-host, Susant.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, everyone. That was fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Today, we talked about the episode Collective from Voyager. That was Season 6, Episode 16. Yeah, join us next time where we talk about the Star Trek Enterprise episode E Squared from Season 3, Episode 21. Until then, thank you for your continued support. If you would like to contact us, please email us at warpfactorunknown@outlook.com. Again, is warpfactorunknown@outlook.com. You can also leave comments on YouTube, Spotify, and various other places. The music we use for our podcast is called Starfleet Command by Jeff Harvey, and you can find more of his work on pixabay.com.